والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. So far we have done about 40 verses in Surah al-Anbiya, and I believe that tonight and tomorrow night will be the last of this discussion about Surah al-Anbiya, because you have a better, more knowledgeable, pious speaker coming Sunday night. It's verified Sunday night, I believe it'll be his first night, so please continue to participate. His name is Sheikh Ja'far Muhibbullah. He'll be coming and inshallah benefiting the community, inshallah. He studied many years in Rome. He speaks Farsi as well. If you have questions and that you would like to ask him in Farsi, you can. And inshallah continue and keep us in your du'as. So we did about 40 verses. Tonight we're going to do 41 to 45. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First verse. وَلَقَدِ اسْتُهْزِئَ بِالرُّسُلٍ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ فَهَاقَ بِالَّذِينَ سَخِرُوا مِنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. And already were messengers ridiculed before you, Rasulullah. Don't think that you were the first messenger to be made fun of. They would ridicule our Prophet. But those who mocked them were enveloped by what they used to ridicule. So here when we look at this verse, that first it is giving calmness and it is giving tranquility to Rasulullah's heart, that this was the sunnah and this is the seerah of people, the behavior they had towards Rasulullah and through the prophets. Some of them they made fun of, and some of them they killed. So because the truth is something that is hard for many to accept and to change, therefore those that are at the pinnacle of power, those that control the economy, control the government, they do not want disruption. They don't want things to change. So they would fight. The wealthy would fight. The powerful would fight against the prophets, unfortunately. We see two words here, sukhriya, which is from we use here, sakhiru, sukhriya, and huz, which is, yastahzi'un. Sukhriya and huz, the difference is that huz means to degrade someone through speech, huz. To degrade someone through speech. While sukhriya means to humiliate one. To humiliate. So in the translation they use ridiculed and mocked, but you won't understand this. So one is huz is through speech. You say something, you make fun of them. The other one is to try to humiliate the other. So therefore we go to the next verse and we read, قُلْ مَنْ يَكْلُؤُكُمْ بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ مِنَ الرَّحْمَنِ بَلْ هُمْ عَنْ ذِكْرِ رَبِّهِمْ مُعْرِضُونَ. Say, who can protect you at night or by day from the most merciful? But they are from the remembrance of their Lord turning away. So kela'la, for here we have yakla'ukum, means protection. Meaning that who is it that would protect them? The mushrikeen and enemies of Rasulullah, they were making fun of Rasulullah. They were rejecting his invitation to Islam. Who would protect them if Allah does not protect them? An interesting note that some have said here, it says Ar-Rahman. Who can protect them if Ar-Rahman does not protect them? Who can protect you at day and night from Ar-Rahman? It's interesting. Usually when we say protect you from someone, it's a threat. Usually you say, for example, from Shadidul Iqab, from the being that is going to severely chastise you, for example. But here the Quran says, who will protect them from the most merciful? Meaning that they were so bad at what they did. Their oppression was so terrible that even Ar-Rahman cannot save them. Even Ar-Rahman would be able to punish them. Meaning that the level of treachery and sins that they committed, even Allah, who is Arhamar Rahimin, will still punish them. This is the amount of sin that they did. Then we understand here, بَلْ هُمْ عَنْ ذِكْرِ رَبِّهِمْ مُعْرِضُونَ. And some have referred to dhikr here as Quran. They turn back towards the Quran, even though the Holy Quran today, many people, they read one verse of the Quran 1400 years later. Not even in Arabic, they read the translation of the Quran and they become infected and influenced. They become affected. How come in Arabia, 1400 years, when their Quran was presented in their exact language, in classical Arabic, and they understood the miracles, why wouldn't they accept the Holy Quran? So it shows that how evil some of the people were, and how much they deserved punishment. So therefore they are turning away from the Quran. So this makes us understand this, that don't think that Quran is for the Arabs. Quran is not for the Arabs. It is in Arabic. But those that spoke the best Arabic were 1400 years ago, because it's in classical Arabic at that time. They understood it the most. They understood it clearly. Today, you see even celebrities in the US, they read the Quran and they say it's so clear. It speaks to me, it's clear. 1400 years later, non-Muslims. Now imagine that time that it comes to their own language and they reject. So Quran is not for Arabs. Quran is for anyone who has an open heart. For anyone who Allah has opened their chest. Because their Arabic of Abu Sufyan and the likes of Abu Sufyan is better than anyone's Arabic now who wants to study 1400 years ago Arabic. Doesn't matter how much Arabic you know. It matters if your heart is open. You know, I was interesting, one of my friends, he was on TV recently, and he was explaining that he went to a country, that he went to travel to this country, Brazil, for leisure and fun. And it had his photo too. He had long hair, and he went to Brazil, and he had nothing, said nothing I knew about Islam, nothing. And when I wanted to go on this journey, in Iranian culture, it's very common that you go under the Quran. I think other cultures have it too. You go under the Quran for protection, you kiss the Quran. So he's wondering, what is this book? Because he's raised in the US. What is this book? Let me read it. He says, it's the Quran. Let me take it with me. He takes it with him. He's in the hotel. He wants to have lots of fun. He wants to go out. He can't wait. He said, let me rest a little bit, and I have this Quran. He wants to sleep. Before he went to Brazil, the carnival or whatever it is, I don't know. And he says, let me look at this book. What it is? And he looked at it, and he read from the beginning. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Surah al-Hamd, Surah al-Baqarah, until he reached the first verses in Surah al-Baqarah. Basically just paraphrasing that if you have doubt in the Quran, then bring something like it. If you have doubt in the Quran, then bring like it. If you think it's made up, if you think the Quran is made up, and a bunch of poets wrote it, and a bunch of scholars wrote it, then they can do it again. If it's man-made, it could be replicated. Then do it again, reproduce it. And he says, wow, what a challenge. Bring like, and he's saying, if you have doubt, then bring it. And he's thinking to himself, did anyone really bring something like the Quran? And he said, I kept reading it and reading it and reading it from the beginning to the end. He says, this verse hit me so hard. And that is why I keep saying in Shahr Ramadan, think about the Quran. Reflect about the Quran. Don't just read from the beginning to end and you're the same person as you used to be in Shahr Ramadan before. Think about these verses that we're talking about. That's why we're opening up these discussions. He says, I didn't even go outside. I didn't even go to Brazil to see what was going on. I stayed in my hotel room and just read Quran. I went all the way to Brazil to read Quran. It's, my close friends. And today, mashallah, he's very religious, very pious. And one verse hit him. Did he speak Arabic? No. He read the translation of Quran. So I said, Quran is for a person who has an open heart and is looking for guidance. We're going to mention later on in the end that actually the Quran in advice and the prophets, they give advice to everyone except anyone who is not willing to change, for example, to change themselves. Let's recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. أم لهم آلهة تمنعهم من دوننا? Or do they have gods to defend them other than us? So here the particle is connected from what was before. So those that were making fun of the prophets, for example, those that were not believing, لا يستطيعون نصر أنفسهم ولا هم منا يصبحون. They are unable even to help themselves, nor can they be protected from us. This is verse 43. So here you see that those that worshipped the idols, those that were polytheists, they have gods that even these idols, these gods, they cannot help themselves. How are they going to help someone else? Prophet Ibrahim took them and broke them, for example, and said the largest one broke them. If they could do anything, they would do it for themselves. They can't even help themselves. So this describes the end result of their continued provision. In tafsir, it's mentioning an enjoyment mentioned in the first part of the verse, meaning that we have provided for these polytheists everything. We have given them. They were unable to protect themselves, but we have given them everything. We have protected them from the people that were going to attack Mecca and the Holy Kaaba, from the tribe of Juhrum, for example. We have given them protection, given them business, trade. But yet, at the end, they are turning away from the Holy Quran. بل متعنا هؤلاء وآباءهم حتى طال عليهم العمر. But on the contrary, we have provided good things for these disbelievers. أفلا يرون أنا نأتي الأرض ننقصها من أطرافها. We have provided good things for these disbelievers and their fathers until life was prolonged for them. They had good. So Quran now is mentioning that these people that are rejecting Rasulullah, these people that are fighting against him, we have given them good, Quran mentions. Mata'na, we have given them provisions. And we have given them Tala alayhimul umr. We have given them a long life. But it seems like this is not enough for them. Because a lot of times when Allah gives and gives great, bounties and blessings, people do not appreciate it. It actually causes them to be more misguided. أَفَلَا يَرَوْنَ أَنَّا نَأْتِي الْأَرْضِ. Now this verse, there are different tafsirs. Then do they not see that we set up the land reducing from its borders? We have reduced the land from its borders. Some say that what does this mean? Does it mean that we have taken away from the land of the mushrikeen, the land of the polytheists, we've taken away? Some of the Mufassirin say no, because there were no futuhat or land that was conquered, because this is a Mecca verse, Mecca surah. It's not taken away from the land. It's not taken away from the land of the land of the disbelievers. 2, we see that some say it means that their lands will be destroyed. So therefore we see that some of their lands, that's the second interpretation. 3, we see that those that live in the land, they will be destroyed. And the 4th is that some of their scholars will be destroyed. There's 4 possibilities about what does it mean that their land and their borders will be reduced. There's a hadith from Imam alayhi salam, Imam Sadiq, وصلى على محمد وعلى محمد. it says نقصانها ذهاب عالمها. So we talk about the fact that their land becoming less in hadith, it means that their scholars became less. Now this is an important thing. So we're saying that, what does this mean that their land became less? Does it mean that the land that they own became less because Muslims now took over their land? Does it mean, for example, they become less as they die, for example, they become old? Does it mean that their scholars become less? This hadith is saying their scholars become less. Here Ayatollah Karim Shirazi gives us an interesting idea in tafsir, and that is, a lot of times the hadith, the way that it does tafsir of verses, it gives a specific mistaq or example. It gives a specific mistaq or example of something. It's not giving a general rule. So he says that, for example, this hadith is saying their scholars. This is one example. Their scholars will be less, for example. Their people will be less also. So you cannot say scholars will become less and then people will not become less, or land will not become less. So sometimes hadith does tafsir of the Quran, but only the example. It only gives one example. It can still mean other things, and you can still use the umumat, or the itlaqat, the absoluteness, or the verse implying to other instances as well. This is giving one example. So here he says that the best of these means that slowly and slowly people and the population of people will decrease. People slowly will die in these lands. There's one interpretation. Slowly, if you look, you live in this earth, and slowly you'll leave. So here then Allama Tabatabai says here, the meaning which fits the context best is the shrinking the size of the land refers to the extinction of certain nations that live on it. The shrinking the size of the land means that certain nations will be extinct. Indeed, every nation has a term, he says, Allama Tabatabai, every nation has a term. And he refers to this verse of Quran, that they shall not them remain behind for an hour, nor can they go before their time. So every nation has a term. That is in tafsir, according to Allama Tabatabai, that is the tafsir according to An-Namuneh of Ayatollah Karim, that this is talking about the civilization, and people will not be here permanently. No nation, no country will be. And when you look at every nation, you see that however strong their rule was, eventually someone overthrew them. Eventually they were gone. There was this dynasty, then that dynasty, this kingdom, then that kingdom, and all of them eventually lost, and they left this earth. We're going to go through the last verse and get into the topic that we want to talk about. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أُنذِرُكُمْ بِالْوَحْيِ. Say, I only warn you by revelation. وَلَا يَسْمَعُ الصُّمَّ الدُّعَاء. But the deaf do not hear. إِذَا مَا يُنذَرُونَ. When do not hear the call when they are warned. So the final verse we're going to talk about is about those that are deaf, those that do not hear the call. Because we said that people that are arrogant, people that do tuqyan, people that sometimes have too much, are too full. Have you ever been in a situation where there was too much comfort for you? It was too easy for you? Maybe you're at a good hotel, good buffet, or a good masjid, and they took care of you, for example, and you felt as if I don't really want to worship anymore because I am too calm and too full, and life is too good for me. For example, when you're on vacation, that is unfortunately how mankind is. When there's too much good, when sometimes we get spoiled and we don't appreciate it, and there's no test and tribulation, everything works exactly how we have it, what happens to a person? They fall asleep. They don't pay attention. One of the worst types of roads are which type of roads? Who drives here a lot? The straight ones. The ones that don't have any turns. The straight ones, you just go and go and go. Then you doze off, and then you wake up, and you see that they're asking, for example, Man Rabbuk, Man Nabiyuk, for example. Doze off. So you have to pay attention, straight roads. But what happens when you have a twisty road? When you're in the mountains, Your eyes are like this. You're watching, making sure you don't fall off the cliff because it's very deep. And you don't want it to have your car tumbling down. You pay attention. So life isn't the same way. When you have trials and tribulations in life, you pay attention. You wake up. But when things are too comfortable, you get lazy. And when you want to even go to Hajj, I've seen this for a pilgrimage. What happens when they take you sometimes to the best of hotels, best of buffets, and you eat too much and too many pastries and cakes? You don't really want to go to do ziyarah as much. You just want to relax. But compared to a lot of times when you go to a humble, for example, caravan, and there's not much happening, and you go with that sincerity, you actually get more out of the ziyarah. So this has been an ever, a principle that's been lasting forever, is that man has this possibility or potential for tuqyan. Because that's how mankind is. That the more they have, the more arrogant they become. The more self-sufficient man becomes, they think they don't need God anymore. And Quran mentions it very beautifully that when people are on the ship, and the ship has large waves, for example, and they're afraid that they're going to drown, then they call on Allah, mukhlaseen lahuddin, Allah, save me. Now their du'as are heard. But then when they reach the shore, see you later, Allah, see you, thank you very much. Have a nice day, for example. I don't need Allah anymore. Na'udhu billah. What would happen if we were to worship God when everything was good for us? What would happen when we worshipped Allah with gratitude and gratefulness and appreciation? That when we have a lot and when our stomachs are full, we truly do sujood of Allah and say, Allah, thank you so much. Why do we wait for bala and trials and tribulations for us to say, Ya Allah? So this is a misconception in the believer's mind, that we always wait for something bad to happen to call Allah. What happens if you call Him during times of good? Actually, my teacher, akhlaq teacher, Sheikh Ahmad Mujtahidi, would say the hadith that sometimes there is a terrible natural disaster, an earthquake, for example. And you see in this earthquake, everyone's home's ruined. But there's a few homes standing. And he said, I was wondering why. Sometimes, Muslim countries, for example, or Masjed would stay. Terrible things would happen, but these few homes stay. And nothing happens to them. They're saved. Why are they saved? The other are not saved. He said that I looked at a hadith, a narration, and actually it explained this. That why do some people get saved in natural disasters, for example? He says that when bala happens, everyone calls upon Allah. Would you agree with me? When calamity, right now, if the ground starts shaking, a huge earthquake, and the earthquake that they say that California is going to go to the ocean, for example, and Arizona can buy beachfront property, for example, they used to say, maybe such earthquakes coming. And sometimes earthquakes last for minutes. And it's shaking. Would everyone here call Allah? Yes. Maybe everyone in Los Angeles would call God. Right? But at that time, everyone is calling on God. But the tradition says there are angels that say that there are voices that are familiar. I heard that voice before. Whose voice is this? That's familiar. They used to call upon Allah all the time before the earthquake, before, for example, natural disasters. They would call upon Allah all the time. It says, I'm going to help them first because their voice, their sound is familiar. I know that voice. I know how that sounds like. That's familiar. They make dua all the time when there's no earthquake. I heard that voice before. He used to do munajat. He used to do dua kumail. He used to come to Masjed. He used to come. I heard that voice before. He's familiar. So therefore, because you're familiar now with the angels and the angels like you, so you have a VIP card, they're going to come and take care of you first. We call this party bazi. This is party bazi. This is halal. This is, in a way, favoritism that's allowed because they know you. But a person that doesn't do party bazi, a person that never does dua for God, and only when natural disasters happen, when everyone calls God, then they're not going to have that VIP angel service. They're going to be in economy. They have to wait for the business class and the VIP to get their protection. And then if there's anything else left, then they'll come to them, for example. So this is a reality that we have to understand in Shahr Ramadan, that if we are comfortable, if life is going the way we want it, to do the ibadat of the shakireen, of the grateful. Don't wait for something terrible to happen. While you're happy, while things are good, say alhamdulillah, shukranallah. And this is equal to that patience. 2, we understand that too much good, being too much spoiled sometimes is not good for us, like that road I mentioned. That sometimes you see kids that are raised at a young age. Don't spoil your kids. Just give them everything just for no reason. Kids that are spoiled, hawa and nafs goes in them, and they cannot ever say no to themselves. Whatever they want, they have to get. Whatever they want, they have to get. Be compassionate and kind, but make them work. Don't give anything to free. They want something, make them read some books. I generally recently have this principle: whoever wants to ask for something, I say, give me a salawat first, I'll give it to you, for example. Give me a salawat. Muhammad. Don't ever work for free. And we understand that those that are spoiled and those who cannot control their nafs and lower desires, they are the ones that do tughyan. They are the ones that are arrogant. So there's a relationship with humility and humbleness and submitting to the will of Allah. And someone being arrogant, not caring of others, and being selfish and rebellion, being a rebel. Look at the story of Prophet Ibrahim. During what king did he live? Prophet Ibrahim. Who can tell me? Nimrud, right? So Prophet Ibrahim and Nimrud, or I don't know if they call it like a Nimrod in English, right? We can ask the tech corner, Nimrod means what? Is it why? Because he wanted to fight with God? He was actually, in the stories, it mentions that Nimrod or Nimrod wanted to fight with God. How can he fight with God? And he says, eventually, I'm going to kill the Lord of Ibrahim. I'm going to shoot him down. He went on a tower, and he actually was very tricky too. He put blood on the arrow. He put blood secretly on the arrow, and then he shot the arrow, and the arrow came down, and they looked at the arrow and said, oh, there's blood. And he says, I killed the Lord of Ibrahim. I killed him. You see me? He was so arrogant because he says, I'm going to fight with God. He was a Nimrod. Then Allah devastated him, because whoever is arrogant, Allah devastates him, and devastated him with the tiniest of things, a gnat, an insect. Small insect went through the nostril into the brains of Nimrud and finished him, because when Allah wants to show His power, He will show it with the tiniest of things. For example, at the time of COVID, something you can't even see, it shut down the entire world, killed millions of people. For example, something microscopic you could not see with your naked eye. So therefore you see that there's a relationship with the tyrants, with those that do not want to take heed, and they don't want to listen in their arrogance. And that is a satanic, one of the attributes of shaitan is arrogance, istikbar. That is one of the behavior of shaitan was he was arrogant. So we have to be very careful and understand that at some times, when God gives us sickness, God gives us poverty, God gives us trials, He is trying to make us humble, and that is good for us. That is our medicine. Sometimes we need that medicine. Let me read this hadith for you, for example. Again, no free hadith. Recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala ali Muhammad wa ajal farajahum. Let's recite another salawat so I can find inshallah. The 3 roots of disbelief. Do you want to know what disbelief comes from? It has roots. This is in one of the chapter 111, Roots of Disbelief in Al-Kafi. Babu fi usul al-kufr wa arkane. The chapter of the roots of disbelief and the pillars. Hadith number 1. Remember always, a lot of times muhaddithin, they like to bring the best hadith as number 1. Why would you bring it put it at the end? Usually in that chapter, that first hadith is important. Usul al-kufr thalatha. 3 things cause a person to disbelieve. Al-hirs. Hirs is greed. To be greedy for something. 2, wal-istikbar. This is hirs with a sad. Hirs. 2, istikbar, meaning to arrogantly reject Allah, be arrogant. It causes disbelief. And 3, hasad, jealousy, envy. فأما الحرص فإن آدم حين نهي عن الشجرة حمله الحرص على أن أكل منها. The first thing that attacked Adam, even though it wasn't a sin, was hirs, greed, to eat from the prohibited tree. 2, والاستكبار. Istikbar led shaitan حيث أمر بالسجود لآدم فأبى. Caused shaitan not to follow and prostrate for Adam. والحسد فأبناء آدم حيث قتل أحدهما صاحبا. Until Qabil killed Habil, the brother, they killed one another. So these are the 3 roots of kufr. Hirs, istikbar, and hasad. So Allah sometimes humbles us, gives us, for example, something, poverty for us, or death for us, for others around us, or something we don't like, so that we will not always look like this and become arrogant. God brings these things, another tradition, so that He can, in a way, give us the medicine that we need to be humble. So why don't we become humble from the beginning? Why do we allow that rebellion to happen? Why is it when somebody gets very rich, they change? Somebody gets very strong, they change. Why can't we learn that when we become rich, when we become strong, when we become comfortable, that actually we use these resources more to serve Allah, that we appreciate Allah more, and we say, Allah, you gave me more, thank you. So this is tonight's lesson, that one of the roots of disbelief and why they rejected, as we say, in this verse, we'll finish with reading this verse, is istikbar, or arrogantly rejecting Allah. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أُنذِرُكُمْ بِالْوَحْيِ. Say, I only warn you by revelation. Tell them, Muhammad. وَلَا يَسْمَعْ الصُّمْ, and dua, and the one who is deaf does not hear the dua, the call, إِذَا مَا يُنذَرُونَ. And the person that is deaf, they do not hear. Why? Because they are so arrogant. They have rebelled against God, and therefore they'll never be humble and never be willing to change themselves, never be willing to listen. And God forbid if we are in the same way, that we are proud of ourselves, that we are too comfortable sometimes, that this could cause us rebellion, and that we can cause us not to follow Islam. May Allah make us, inshallah, of those that submit to Islam. May Allah make us of those that recite the Quran and understand the Holy Quran, inshallah. May Allah expedite the return of the Imam of the age with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.